My name is Obina, and I will never forget what happened in our village of Umofia 2 Hamatans ago. It was the kind of story you only hear whispered during palm wine evenings or under the baobab when the elders want to teach you something without pointing a finger. It started with a wedding. Let me correct myself, it started with a promise of a wedding. And as we all know, in our part of Igbo land, the wedding is not just about love. It is about families, reputation, ancestral blessings, and the things left unsaid by our forefathers. Chainenaya was the bride. A soft-spoken girl, with the kind of beauty that draws stares but not always the good kind. Her mother, Mama Ejaid, sold roasted plantains by the roadside and was respected for raising 3 daughters after her husband died from a snake bite during the planting season. Chainenaya was her youngest and the most obedient. That girl wouldn't raise her eyes when an elder spoke, not even once. And the groom? His name was Ekazona. He had returned from the city with wealth dripping from his shoes. People whispered that he built a 3-room bungalow for his mother in just one dry season and bought her a gas cooker even though she still preferred her firewood kitchen. He came in a black Toyota Camry, and the way he walked through the village square during Ofala festival made even the hunters pause their drumming. When Ekazona announced his intention to marry Chainenaya, the village buzzed like a disturbed beehive. Some were happy. Others were skeptical. City boys don't marry girls from the village anymore, my uncle said one night as we sat outside peeling groundnuts. If he is marrying her, he must want something we are not seeing. But Mama Ejaid was elated. Finally, one of her daughters would live in a city house with tile floors and maybe even a fridge. She began preparing cassava for fufu a whole month ahead of the wine carrying. She even took a loan from the women's cooperative to buy 2 goats for the celebration. I should have known something was off when Ekazona refused to spend more than one night in the village. He is busy, they said. He has businesses to run. But how can you marry a girl and not sit long enough to know how she stirs her soup or fetches water? Still, the plans moved ahead. Palm wine was brewed, wrappers were bought from Onitsha market, and the bride price was agreed upon, though some elders mumbled that it was too generous, almost like he was buying silence. 3 nights before the wedding, something strange happened. It was around the 7th hour of the night, just when the moon was peeking through the palm fronds. I was walking back from Nedi's compound when I saw a figure standing by the village shrine. That place is sacred, nobody goes there at night unless you are seeking something that is not of man. The figure was Ekazona. He stood with both hands behind his back, staring at the carved totems like they could answer him. I ducked into the bush and watched, my heart thudding like the festival drum. He dropped something, coins, maybe, and whispered words I couldn't catch. Then he walked away, not looking back once. The next morning, I told my cousin, Nwakigo, who was also Chainenai's friend. Her face turned pale like someone who had seen an owl in daylight. There's something I haven't told anyone, she said, voice shaking. But maybe you should know. She leaned close, her breath smelling of bitter leaf, then whispered, Chainenaya has been sick since last week. Not sick like fever, but she wakes up at night screaming. She says a woman in red keeps walking around her compound, calling her name. I wanted to laugh, ghost tales before weddings are common. But Nwakigo was not the kind to lie. She swore on her grandmother's grave. And the way she kept glancing over her shoulder made me believe her. The wedding day arrived, bright and hot. The villagers gathered like ants over spilled sugar. The masquerades danced, the drummers beat their skins till their palms bled, and the children chased each other around the yam barns. Chainenaya was dressed in coral beads and a George wrapper, her hair braided like royalty. But if you looked closely, you'd see her eyes weren't smiling. She kept twisting her fingers, her lips dry like someone who had swallowed a secret. Just before the kola nut was broken, the priest of the shrine, old Dyke Madu, arrived, uninvited. Everyone went quiet. The man rarely left the shrine unless the spirits demanded it. He walked straight to Chinanai's father's chair and said, "This marriage cannot hold." A gasp went through the crowd. Mama Ejide stood, her voice trembling with anger and confusion. "What are you saying, Dyke? The bride price has been paid." But the old man ignored her. He pointed at Ikazona. "You brought offerings to the spirits 3 nights ago. You asked them to hide something. But truth buried in the earth does not die, it becomes a tree with roots." Ikazona tried to laugh, but the sound came out cracked. "You are old, Dyke. Maybe your dreams confuse you." Dyke's eyes burned like palm oil fire. "Then let me speak what the spirits showed me." And that's when he told the story about a girl named Ifeoma from the next village who had died mysteriously 2 years ago after following her lover to the city. A girl who had been promised marriage, then disappeared without a burial. "The spirits say you made a vow with her," Dyke said. "And when you broke it, her blood cried out. You came here to escape, to replace her with a quiet village girl. But blood is not a stone you can kick aside." A silence fell so deep you could hear the goats bleating from across the river. Chinanai fainted. When Chinanai collapsed to the ground, a murmur spread through the crowd like dry leaves catching fire. Women rushed to her, fanning her with headscarves, calling her name. Someone brought a calabash of water, another rubbed shea butter on her wrists. But she remained still, her chest rising only slightly, like someone caught between 2 worlds. Ikazona stood frozen. His fine lace shirt now clung to his back with sweat. Even the men who had laughed with him moments before took slow steps away, their sandals dragging in the dust. Dyke Madu didn't move. His gaze was still fixed on the man before him. His voice, now low and heavy, came again. "I have spoken the words of the spirits. Now let those who have ears hear, and those who carry guilt decide." Mama Ejide finally knelt beside her daughter, crying. Not the kind of crying you do for sympathy, but the cry of a mother who has just seen the thin line between life and death hanging above her child's head. "What have you brought upon my daughter, Ikazona? What spirit have you carried to my home?" Ikazona opened his mouth, then closed it again. A bead of sweat traced the line of his jaw. For the first time since he returned to Umuofia, the proud city man looked small, like a child who had wandered into the wrong story. It was Papa Odenigbo, the oldest elder in the clan, who stepped forward. His voice, though shaky with age, still commanded silence. "Speak now, son of Ebachuku. If there is anything to be said, say it before this day ends." Ikazona looked at the ground for a long time. Then, like a man removing a mask, he spoke. "Ifeoma was my first love," he began. "We met in Nsaka when I was still in university. She was everything, bold, loud, full of fire. We promised each other things, maybe too much. We moved in together after graduation. But life wasn't easy. I had nothing, no job, no house, no peace. She began to blame me, to shout, to accuse me of dragging her down." He paused. The silence urged him on. "One night, she told me she was pregnant. I didn't believe her. I thought she was trying to trap me. We fought. She ran out into the street. That night, a trailer lost control, and she died instantly." Gasps filled the air. Chinanai, now conscious again, sat up slowly, eyes wide in horror. "I didn't kill her," Ikazona said quickly, "but I didn't stop her either. And afterward, I didn't go to her family. I couldn't. I left Nsaka and started over. I told myself she was part of a life I had buried. But the dead do not forget," Dyke Madu said calmly. "And they do not forgive when their story is denied." That was when strange things began to happen. A sudden wind picked up in the compound, though the sky was clear and cloudless. The canopy over the sitting area flapped violently and collapsed on one side. The calabash of palm wine meant for the blessing cracked clean down the middle. Then a voice, soft but sharp like broken glass, rose from Chainanai's throat. It was not her own. You made me a promise under the Udala tree. You said we would be buried in the same cloth. The villagers stumbled back. Some screamed. Others dropped their kola nuts and ran. I couldn't move. I knew what I was hearing, but my ears didn't want to believe. You took everything, the voice continued. And now you want to give it to another? Chainanai stood now, eyes rolled back, speaking with Ifeoma's soul. You will not wed until I am buried. The wind died. Chainanai collapsed again, but this time she woke with a scream. Her own voice returned. What happened? She whispered, clutching her head. She had no memory of the words she had just spoken. The elders huddled. There was no debate, only decisions. Ekozona was ordered to return to Nsaka within 7 days, locate Ifeoma's family, and give her a proper burial with the rites due to a bride who died with vows unfulfilled. Only then, and if the ancestors were satisfied, would he be allowed to speak of marriage again. As for Chainanai, she was taken to Neka, the herbal woman, to be cleansed with herbs and water from the 7 springs. For 3 days, she lay in silence, her body racked with dreams. On the 4th day, she opened her eyes and wept, not for Ekozona, but for the love she thought she had. The wedding never happened. Ekozona returned to Nsaka. Months passed. A message reached us. He had found Ifeoma's people, paid the rites, and wept at her grave. But he never came back to Umuofia. As for Chainanai, she changed. The quiet girl who once walked with her head down now walked with purpose. She joined the village women's cooperative and started a food stall near the market. She laughed again, but never too loudly. She wore red only on her headscarves, never on her body. And one evening, as the sun melted into the sky, she told Nokigo, I would have married a ghost. She said with a smile. So, my friends, some stories aren't meant to end with dancing and feasting. Some are warnings. This is one of them. That's why I say, before your wedding, watch this story. Not with your eyes, but with your spirit. Because sometimes, the past wears a suit and smiles like the future. Make sure to like the video and subscribe as the stories are just about to get better.